What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I want to show you guys, Speaker McCarthy, he just got out of the White House and he did a press conference. And so I want to talk a little bit about this press conference. And I think I'm going to have to break this up. And so I'll probably show some of it now. And then tomorrow morning, I will post the rest because I have a lot to say. I actually watched it already, but I have a lot to say about some of the things that he talked about. The good news is that he's saying that they're still progressing forward, but the bad news is it doesn't look like they're really agreeing on anything. They're just pretty much meeting and saying, yes, we don't want to go into default, but we're not really agreeing on anything to move forward. So he's saying there was progress made, but realistically, when he's asked by the reporters, there's no real progress made because there's the same sticking points that they had before. They're still there. They haven't moved past that. And so in this video, I'm going to show you the press conference and we're going to talk a little bit about this. But first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification, clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. And please remember, if you're not getting notifications, let me know in the comments below. And also follow me on Twitter at the TEC Show Live. Okay, let's get right over to this press conference. Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, at this point, what are the biggest sticking points in the negotiation? And the president, he said that he's willing to cut spending, but he also wants to raise revenue as well. Are you willing to talk about that?
No, just to be clear why. When you talk about raising revenue, if you look at the 50-year average of America, how much money have we brought in by revenue? That would be roughly about 17% of GDP. Right now, we're bringing almost 20% of GDP in revenue. Now, how many times has that happened in modern history? Only twice, in 1944 and in 2000. So you're bringing in more money at a higher percentage than any other time. Now, so why are we in such a problem? The expenditures, the amount of money government spends. So on a 50-year average, government normally spends about 21% of GDP. Right now with 22, after the Democrats took over, they're over 24% of GDP. So the problem is not revenue, the problem is spending. So if you want to know where our differences have been, it's always been the same place. I simply believe, like any household, like any business, like any state government, when you're this far out of whack, you have to spend less than you spent last year. That's why we talk about that going back to where we spent just 5 months ago. Put a cap in there, grow the economy, pull back money that hasn't been spent, like COVID funds that have sat there for 2 years. Who thinks you should do that? Save the taxpayer money, grow the economy by cutting red tape, letting us build things again in America. So these are just a few things. The other thing is, how do we get people back into the workforce, right? So we're only talking about, in work requirements, able-bodied people who have no dependents. Should we borrow money from China to pay people who are able-bodied with no dependents to sit on the couch? I don't think so, because we have found every study, it takes people off poverty rolls and puts them into jobs. It gives them a sense of worth. They're able to buy a house. They're able to send their kids to college. It's a very positive American thing. Yes.
Okay, so this first portion here, he's talking mainly about the spending. So President Biden, what he wants to do is he wants to raise taxes. He wants to raise taxes on people who are making over $400,000, or wealthy people, basically, is what he's targeting here, as well as corporations. And by doing that, you'll have more money as far as revenue coming in, and then you can actually pay down the debt and you can do all this other stuff. And so what Speaker McCarthy is saying is we want to make the cuts. When it comes to the revenue, we're not interested in raising taxes on anyone. We just want to make the cuts. But you can only cut so much, and that's the problem. Because once you get into these agencies that have, I mean, they've been getting this money for all this time. When you start making those cuts, they're going to have to cut their workforce, which means they're going to have to lay people off. So you can get the reverse effect if you just go straight in and say we're just going to make all these cuts. The reality is you're probably going to have to raise taxes at some point in order for us to get out of this mess, in order for us to get out of the situation where we spend too much money. You're going to have to raise taxes. And that's the reality. You can't cut your way out of this. You have to do a little bit of both. And so that's what he is not saying here. He's basically just saying, all we're going to do is make the cuts And he was also talking about the Medicaid situation. So having people go back to work. Now, there already are work requirements for people on Medicaid. However, they want to raise, and this is the talk, because nothing's on paper. That's another thing here. We don't have anything on paper. We're just listening to these politicians go back and forth and say, well, we able-bodied people should be able to work. But what they want to do is they want to raise that age from 50 to 55. And so right now it's at 50. You need to work 20 hours. I think they want to raise it up to 55 and then require you to work longer or work more hours. And so it might be 35 hours a week. It might be 40 hours a week. And you would think that we should also be looking at the situation if you are working, let's say you're working 20 hours per week or you're working 35 or 40 hours per week. It should be the employer's responsibility to provide some type of health coverage for you. And if they're not providing that, that's why the federal government has to step in and provide Medicaid, because you have people working, but they're not working enough hours in order to qualify for some type of health insurance. And so that should be another discussion, because you do have employers that get away with this. And some employers will say, you know what? I'm not going to hire you full time. I'm going to hire you part time, maybe hire 2 people part time. That way I don't have to pay for health insurance. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue.
Do Americans need to do anything to prepare for the potential of default? There are a lot of people worried about what could happen to their jobs, their savings, and so forth. Do Americans need to get ready for that?
No, because the Republicans had passed a bill that raised the debt ceiling that's sitting in the Senate. You always have the ability to move that. There's always opportunity.
And so the interesting part about this is that they knew in the House, Speaker McCarthy put this bill together knowing that it would not pass the Senate. And so instead of negotiating with the senators and finding out, hey, can we get a bill that can actually pass, they went ahead and just passed whatever they wanted. Put everything they wanted in the bill and passed it, knowing that it's not going anywhere in the Senate. And then now they're saying, well, look, we passed a bill. And so since the senators don't want to cooperate, it's their fault. No, it's your fault, because you didn't compromise with them prior to passing a bill. Because if you passed a bill in the House that could have passed in the Senate, that would be responsible. That would be a responsible speaker. But he's not being responsible. He's just saying, you know what? Let's just pass anything, pass everything that we want, and then we'll just send it to the Senate and let them deal with it. That's not how things work. And I mean, if you're working with someone, let's say you have in a job and you're working with someone, there's compromise that has to happen. You don't get everything you want, and you know that. And so now that's why that they're sitting here with this whole negotiation going back and forth with the White House. And I mean, it's just ridiculous, because the reality is you could have done negotiating prior to this. Now, I know he's saying, well, the president didn't want to negotiate with us. You could have negotiated with the senators, because that's the important part, because the first step is to pass it in Congress, and then it goes to the president. And I will tell you, if you pass it in the House and you pass it in the Senate, the president is probably going to sign off on it. And even if the president doesn't sign off on it, guess what? You can override his veto with 2/3 of a vote. And so if you have Congress on the same page, then it doesn't matter what the president wants, because the president is either going to sign it. If he vetoes it, then you can override that veto. And so that's why you should be talking to the senators, and you shouldn't be too concerned with what's going on with the presidency and what's going on with President Biden. And so when Speaker McCarthy's talking about we waited 105 days and the president didn't want to speak with us, he should have been talking to his counterparts in the Senate and trying to find out what bill could we potentially pass. It needs to be bipartisan. We already know that. You pass a partisan bill and you think that the Senate is going to take that up. He knows that that's not possible. And so this is just a situation where it's just back and forth. This is all political. It's all political. And I'm going to keep saying this. When it comes to the debt ceiling and the budget, they're two separate things. You can pass a debt ceiling and address the budget later. But the reason why we have this deadline coming is because of the debt ceiling. It's not because of the budget. So the fact that Speaker McCarthy wants to put these two bills together, that is the problem. That is the only problem that we're facing right now. And that's why we're facing an economic crisis, because he wants to tie them two together. And so if he doesn't tie them together and you raise the debt ceiling, then we can go ahead and focus on the budget from that point on. But that's not what we're hearing. That's not what's going on right now. And I just want to make that clear, because you might look at this and say, well, this is crazy, and why don't they do this or why don't they do that? This is a situation where The politicians are creating this. Speaker McCarthy is creating this. And he can say as much as he wants that, well, we've been waiting to negotiate with the White House and all this. You can negotiate with the White House all you want, but you can raise the debt ceiling as well. You don't have to wait on that. So I want to know what you guys think about all this. Just want to do this quick little update. I'll have more of this press conference later. I just don't, it's going to be too long to just do it in one video. So I want to kind of break it up. So we'll have some more tomorrow. If you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.